We were at City Hall, about to get our marriage license, when Ethan Anderson's protege sent him a picture of a positive pregnancy test. Without a moment's hesitation, he left me standing there and went to bring her home to care for her. Soon after, she posted an intimate photo of the two of them online. The background was our bedroom. Then, a message from Ethan arrived via iMessage. I had too much to drink at the celebration party that night. Candy's pregnant, and I need to be there for her around the clock. She was going to keep it from me and raise the baby on her own, but she's so young, with a future as one of the country's top cardiac surgeons. I can't destroy her career, and I can't abandon an innocent child. You've been wanting a baby soon, right? After she gives birth, I'll send her abroad to finish her studies. You can raise the child, and they'll only ever know you as their mother. When I didn't reply, he added another message. About the marriage license, we'll probably have to reschedule for after Candy has the baby. I stared at my phone screen, a bitter laugh rising until my eyes burned. Did he really think the sole heiress of Chicago's Miller Corporation was that desperate for him? I immediately dialed Leo Vance's number. Marriage license. You in? After we signed the papers, Leo Vance rushed off to the airport, cursing under his breath. He had been waiting to board a flight to Italy for a business conference when my call dragged him down to City Hall. Thinking of the furious look on his face, I felt a pang of guilt. Sonny, what the hell did I do in a past life to deserve this? I chased you for 8 years and barely get the time of day. And now you just snap your fingers and say, let's get married? I glanced at the clock. They're closing soon. Are you in or out? He immediately deflated. I'm in. About my ID, my flight's rescheduled, and I already told my parents. It'd be a waste not to. I guess my silence got to him because Ethan finally called. His voice was laced with urgency. Sonny, don't get the wrong idea. You're the only one for me. What I feel for Candy is just admiration for her talent. That night was a complete accident. Yes, I understand, I said, my voice perfectly calm. It happens with guys. The line went silent for a few seconds, and I heard him take a deep breath. Where are you? I'll send a driver to get you. Candy is having some morning sickness, and I really can't leave her side. I cut him off. Don't bother. His tone turned icy. Sonny, are you throwing a tantrum? I've explained everything. Candy will leave after the baby is born. What more do you want from me? A tightness gripped my chest, and my fingers instinctively tightened around the marriage certificate in my purse. I fought to keep my voice even. Ethan, let's break up. He paused, then let out a cold, self-deprecating laugh. You know how I've treated you all these years, don't you? Yes, I made a mistake, but what man doesn't? I'm already trying to fix it. Do you have to be so relentless? I pressed my lips together and said nothing. My silence finally exhausted his patience. Fine, have it your way. We're broken up. I give you half an hour before you come crying back to me. He slammed the phone down, leaving me with the buzz of a deadline. I hailed a cab and went back to the house that was once ours. I wasn't going back to him just to quickly pack my things and leave. When I opened the door, I saw Ethan in an apron, standing before a dining table laden with an elaborate meal. He and Candy were sitting across from each other, laughing and talking as they ate. He gently placed food on her plate, even carefully lifting a bite to her lips. I once foolishly believed that tender look was reserved only for me. I remembered how every time I cooked for him, he would wrap his arms around me from behind and whisper, "Thank you, my love." It seemed so affectionate, but in 5 years, he had never once poured me so much as a glass of water. He was the youngest cardiac surgery professor at the nation's top medical school. He always used to say, "These hands are for surgery. I have to protect them at all costs." He was even careful about how he held my hand. Yet here he was, breaking his own rule to cook for Candy. Ethan saw me and scoffed, a smug, I knew it look on his face. Candy greeted me with forced enthusiasm. "Sonny, you're back. Would you like to join us for dinner?" I ignored her and walked straight toward the bedroom. "Stop right there." Ethan shot up from his chair, his face dark with anger. "Candy was talking to you. Have the decency to respond. Have you forgotten your manners?" I turned slowly, a cold smile spreading across my face. "And how would you like me to respond? Should I thank her for eagerly carrying my fiancé's child, so I could be a mother without the effort? Or should I just slap her across the face and scream at the cheap mistress to get out of my house?" You. Ethan was so furious he was speechless, a vein throbbing in his temple. Suddenly, Candy covered her mouth and retched, tears instantly welling in her eyes. Ethan rushed to her side. Candy, are you okay? Are you feeling sick? I'm fine, Ethan, she whimpered, clutching his sleeve while her tear-filled eyes stayed locked on me. Sonny, this is all my fault. I didn't want to stay here, but I have nowhere else to go. I promise. I'll leave the moment the baby is born. I'll never bother you and Ethan again. Then she clutched her stomach, her voice breaking into a sob. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. Mommy doesn't want to leave you, but I've done something terrible and I have to be punished. I'm so sorry. She began to gag again, collapsing dramatically into Ethan's arms. Ethan glared at me with pure hatred, as if I had committed some unforgivable crime. Are you satisfied now? He snarled. I just scoffed and turned away. My dismissiveness completely enraged him. He snatched a glass from the table and hurled it at me. A sharp pain exploded in the back of my head, followed by the sound of shattering glass as I stumbled and fell hard against the staircase. The searing pain made me break out in a cold sweat, and for a moment I couldn't get up. Stop faking it and get up. Ethan snapped impatiently from behind me. Candy approached with fake concern. Sonny, you're okay, right? I think the glass just grazed your shoulder. Shut up, I snarled, gritting my teeth as I pushed myself to my feet. Seeing how I spoke to Candy, Ethan's gaze turned frigid. Candy's lost her appetite. Go make her your famous chicken and wild rice soup. And remember, no onions. She doesn't like them. No, I said, without a second of hesitation. That was an order. Ethan's face was a mask of fury. Sonny, do you really think you have a choice? I clenched my fists and met his gaze. I'm not doing it. What are you going to do about it? A dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. He strode forward, grabbed my arm, and violently shoved me into the kitchen. The door slammed shut behind me. Don't even think about coming out until that soup is done. Ethan, you're insane. I pounded on the door, screaming, let me out, until my voice was raw, but my only answer was silence. My palms were red and stinging before I finally gave up, sliding down to the floor to lean against the cold wood. Through the door, I could hear their conversation clearly. Candy's soft voice drifted through. Ethan, isn't this a little too harsh on Sonny? If she doesn't want to cook, it's okay. I don't really need the soup. Ethan sighed. Candy, she's been spoiled by the Miller family her whole life. I have to break her of that princess attitude. If she's going to marry into the Anderson family, she has to live by our rules. How else will she be fit to raise our child? The Andersons are a family of doctors. We value kindness and compassion above all else, but she's so blunt. My mother has never been fond of her. Candy asked, feigning confusion. Ethan, then why don't you just break up with her? It suddenly went quiet outside. I held my breath, frozen against the door. He was right. If I was so terrible in his eyes, why was he still with me? The silence stretched on until Candy gently prompted, Ethan. His calm reply felt like a knife twisting in my heart. The Miller family's influence in Chicago is second to none. They've been a huge help to my career over the years. I pressed my hand hard against my chest as tears finally streamed down my face. So that was it. All these years, he had never wanted me. He had only wanted my family name. In a daze, I remember the year my grandfather had a sudden heart attack. It was Ethan's bold, innovative surgical plan that saved his life. I was immediately smitten with the brilliant young doctor. I only sent a plaque to the hospital to express our family's gratitude, but I never expected him to start pursuing me so relentlessly after that. He never once asked for my family's help. I was the one who pulled strings for him behind the scenes, without his knowledge. How pathetic. I used to worry that his pride would be hurt if he ever found out. The kitchen door opened. Ethan was clearly startled to see me. Then his face twisted into a frown. You're crying over making soup? Get out. I can't stand the sight of you. I fought a wave of dizziness as I staggered to my feet and headed for the bedroom. The moment I pushed the bedroom door open, a chill shot down my spine. The sheets had been replaced with a pink, lacy set that I despised. The photo of me on a nightstand was gone, replaced by a picture of an unknown baby. I opened the closet. All of my clothes were gone. Ethan's voice came from behind me. The guest rooms are too small. It's not convenient for Candy in her condition, so she needs the master bedroom. Candy added timidly, "You don't mind, do you, Sonny? I promise. As soon as the baby is born, I'll—" "Oh," I cut her off. "Where are my things?" Ethan looked away. "I had the housekeeper move them to the storage room. We're turning the nearest guest room into a nursery, so just pick one of the others." I was silent for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine." In the storage room, my designer dresses were tossed carelessly on the floor. My jewelry was scattered in a dusty corner like a pile of garbage. I took a deep breath and shot a sarcastic look at Candy, who had followed me in. "Couldn't wait, could you? You didn't even have the patience to let me walk out the door first." A flicker of guilt crossed her face before she replaced it with a look of pure innocence. "Sonny, what are you talking about?" Ethan told the housekeeper to move everything. I didn't touch a thing. I pointed a finger at a muddy shoe print on one of my silk gowns. "And I suppose the housekeeper did that too." "So what if I did?" she suddenly hissed, her voice low and a vicious light in her eyes. Then, just as quickly, she feigned fear and stumbled backward. "Sonny, please just leave me alone." With that, she let out a shriek and threw herself backward. Ethan rushed in just in time to catch her. Candy immediately clutched her stomach, sobbing. "Ethan, I didn't do anything. I don't know why Sonny pushed me. Thank God you were here. Or the baby." "I didn't push her." The words caught in my throat as I instinctively defended myself. The rage in Ethan's eyes was terrifying. He grabbed my throat and slammed me against the wall. "You think I believe you? That Candy would risk her own baby just to frame you? When did you become so malicious?" His grip was so tight I could barely breathe, and I struggled to force out the words. "I really didn't." "Enough. I don't want to hear your lies." He laughed, a sound devoid of humor, and threw me to the floor. "Go back to your family and play princess. Don't you dare come back until you've learned your lesson." I staggered to my feet, staring at him in disbelief. It was 11 o'clock at night, and he was throwing me out? I remember a time when he would insist on walking with me if I even stepped outside after dark. Now he stood there with his chin held high, refusing to even look at me. My eyes started to burn. How many times had he lost his temper with me today, all for Candy? Everything I said, everything I did, was wrong. And today was the day we were supposed to get married. I closed my eyes, turned, and fled that suffocating house without grabbing a single thing. The moment I got back to my family's home, my phone buzzed. It was a video from Candy. I knew I shouldn't watch it, but my thumb hit play before I could stop myself. On the screen, Ethan was holding Candy tenderly, his eyes closed as he softly kissed her forehead, a look of pure bliss and affection on his face. His voice was filled with regret. "Candy, if only I'd met you sooner, I never would have gotten with Sonny. You're so gifted in your field, so pure and driven. And her, she just throws her family's money around and has never done a day of real work in her life. The Anderson family has a legacy of medicine. Marrying her would eventually tarnish our name." Every word was a poisoned dart, finding its mark in the most vulnerable part of my heart. Candy had used her family's connections in the medical community to easily become his personal protege, the one he called his little sister. That was his definition of gifted. Meanwhile, I had refused to use my family's resources, starting at the bottom and working my way up to director of investments at Miller Corporation. To him, that was just not doing real work. So that's what he'd always thought of me, that I was worthless. There was no way he had ever truly loved me. I set my phone aside and let my tears soak the pillow. I didn't sleep at all that night. Just as dawn was breaking, my phone rang. It was Leo. "Morning, wifey. Sleep well." His voice was practically buzzing with an excitement he couldn't hide. I just landed in Milan. I was too excited to sleep a wink on the flight over. "I still can't believe you actually married me." His voice softened. "Wifey, I miss you already. Do you miss me, wifey?" The word snapped me awake. That's right. In a fit of anger yesterday, I had married Leo Vance. "Sonny, why aren't you saying anything? Are you having second thoughts?" His voice was laced with pure, unadulterated hurt. "No, Ian Suarat Kietli." Leo and I had grown up together. While I wasn't sure if he was truly in love with me, I knew him inside and out. The Vance family was our equal, which made him a perfectly suitable husband. I could practically hear him sigh with relief on the other end of the line, his cheerful energy returning instantly. "I'm flying back tomorrow. We're going to pick out rings." I know we rushed the license, but we're not skipping anything. The proposal, the wedding, the whole deal. You just focus on being the most beautiful bride in the world. I'll handle everything else." I couldn't help but smile and agree to his plans. That was Leo. With him, everything was taken care of. All I ever had to do was go along for the ride. And Ethan, my most vivid memory of him was the back of his head as he rushed away. I was the one who had to bring up getting married. He had frowned and said, "It's only been 5 years. Isn't it a little soon?" The difference between being loved and not being loved was suddenly crystal clear. An entire day passed with no word from Ethan. Instead, his mother called, her voice dripping with condescension. "I assume you're aware of the situation with Ethan and Candy. Now that she's carrying the Anderson family's first grandchild, we have no intention of letting her down. We will insist that Ethan marries her. It's a good thing you two didn't get that license yesterday. It must be fate. I always said you two weren't a good match. The Millers have been merchants for 3 generations, while the Andersons have a long legacy of medicine. Our families simply aren't compatible, wouldn't you agree?" I let out a cold laugh. "Mrs. Anderson, Ethan and I have broken up. Please don't contact me again unless it's an emergency." There was a stunned silence on the other end. She clearly hadn't expected such a response from the person she saw as meek and compliant. Just as she started to sputter in anger, I hung up. She immediately called back several times. I blocked her number without a second thought, then proceeded to block Ethan on everything as well. I deleted every photo I had of him, letting 5 years of love dissolve into nothing. The next day, while I was at a jewelry store picking out wedding rings, I ran into Ethan and Candy. He was excitedly helping Candy pick out an expensive custom jewelry set and a custom silver locket for the baby. When he saw me trying on a ring, Ethan's face darkened instantly. "Sonny, I told you to go home and think about what you've done, and instead I find you here buying a wedding ring? Do you really think I'll still marry you after this display?" He grabbed my hand roughly, pulled the ring off my finger, and handed it back to the sales clerk. "We won't be buying this. Thank you." The edge of the diamond cut my finger, and a drop of blood welled up. The clerk rushed to give me a bandage, but Ethan stopped her with a cold voice. "It's just a scratch. Don't trouble yourself." I ignored him completely. Wiping the blood away, I said to the clerk, "I'd like to try that one, please." Ethan grabbed my wrist, his voice a low growl. "Was I not clear? You're not buying a ring today." Other customers started to whisper. That pregnant woman must be his wife. The nerve of the mistress, showing up to buy a wedding ring so brazenly. So shameless. She wants to be more than a mistress, and now she's getting put in her place. Seeing her opportunity, Candy chimed in with fake sympathy. "Sonny, please stop. This is so embarrassing with everyone watching. You know, Ethan just bought me a ring. If you want, you can have it. Maybe you'll like it." The sales clerk tried to intervene. "Ma'am, perhaps you should come back another day. With all this commotion, it's becoming difficult for us to conduct business." Ethan's grip on my wrist tightened, and I knew he was about to drag me out of the store. I wrenched my arm free. "Ethan, what business is it of yours if I buy a wedding ring?" "Mind your own business." "None of my business?" "Fine. I'm officially calling off the engagement. Now you'll never need a wedding ring." With that, he shoved me hard. Just as I stumbled backward, about to fall, a pair of strong hands caught me and held me steady. Leo's voice was in my ear. "Sorry I'm late, wifey." "Wifey?" Ethan's eyes were glued to Leo's hands on my arms, his voice cracking as it rose in pitch. "Sonny, you had better explain to me what the hell is going on right now." I answered impatiently. "Is there anything to explain? We broke up, remember?" Ethan's face turned ugly, and he let out a cold, harsh laugh. "A breakup? Did I agree to that? And even if we did, it's been 1 day and you're already out with some random guy? Are you that pathetic, Sonny? Did our 5 years together mean nothing to you?" Candy gasped dramatically from the sidelines. "Oh my goodness. Sonny, even if you're upset with Ethan, you don't have to be so shameless about it. You're making a fool of yourself in public. They were the ones who cheated, but somehow I was the one in the wrong. I didn't want to make a scene in public, so I started to pull Leo away. But Candy clearly wasn't going to let this opportunity pass. She stepped in front of us, raising her voice for everyone to hear. "I know the great Sonny Miller has plenty of money and power and never lacks for male attention. But Ethan loves you so much. How can you do this to him? You can't just break up with him when he doesn't agree. Now, I demand that you apologize to him. Ethan stared at me, clearly waiting for me to give him some kind of explanation. A crowd was starting to gather, pointing and whispering at Leo and me as if we were a pair of shameless adulterers. My hands started to tremble, and I gripped the fabric of my sleeve. Leo noticed my distress and whispered, "Don't be afraid." The heir to the Vance fortune was not known for his patience. I had been signaling him with my eyes to keep his cool. But seeing me like this, he couldn't hold back any longer. He strode forward and slammed his fist into Ethan's face. Caught completely by surprise, Ethan staggered and fell to the floor. "Ethan!" Candy shrieked, rushing to his side with tears streaming down her face. "Sonny, we were just talking to you. How could you let your boy toy attack him?" Ethan licked the blood from the corner of his mouth and started to get up, but Leo kicked him back down. He then pulled our marriage certificate from his jacket pocket and shoved it in Ethan's face. "Read it and weep. Sonny and I are legally married. Insult my wife again with that filthy mouth of yours, and you'll be hearing from my lawyers." Ethan stared at it for a second, then lunged for the certificate. Leo snatched it back with a smirk. "What's the matter, doctor? Never seen a marriage license before? You can buy fakes like that anywhere online. You really think I'm that stupid?" Ethan then turned to me, his voice sharp. "Sonny, get over here now. Are you determined to embarrass yourself with this clown?" Just then, Candy suddenly clutched her stomach and let out a pained cry. "Ethan, my stomach, it hurts so much." Ethan scrambled over to check on her. Seizing the opportunity, Leo grabbed my hand and we quickly made our way out of the crowd. As we neared the mall exit, my head started to clear. I looked up and saw the contact number for the mall's digital advertising space, and a slow smile spread across my face. A few minutes later, the intimate video Candy had sent me began playing simultaneously on every large screen in the shopping mall. Although Ethan managed to get the screens shut down quickly, the video had already gone viral online. Within an hour, internet sleuths had dug up every last detail about both of them. The scandal snowballed. Ethan desperately tried to contain it, but for every story he managed to squash, 2 more would pop up. Soon, he was suspended from both the hospital and the university, and Candy was expelled. Eager internet detectives also discovered that Candy's undergraduate degree was from a shady, unaccredited overseas university, meaning she was never qualified for a special placement at the medical school in the first place. I scrolled through the latest comments on Twitter, then looked up at the man calmly sipping wine across from me. This helpful internet detective who keeps leaking all this information wouldn't happen to be you, would it, Mr. Vance? He nonchalantly set down his glass. "After all the years I spent chasing you, I finally make it official. And he has the nerve to call me your boy toy? I'll hold that grudge for the rest of my life." I couldn't help but laugh. Leo looked so polished and handsome, but he always talked like some kind of street brawler. It's no wonder I never took him seriously when he was chasing me all those years. The atmosphere in the Anderson family living room was suffocating. Ethan sat on the sofa, his face a thundercloud, his fingers drumming a relentless rhythm on the armrest. Candy was curled up in a corner, her head bowed, so low it nearly touched her chest. Ever since the video incident at the mall, Ethan had been trying frantically to contact Sonny, only to discover he was blocked everywhere. He was just about to drive to the Miller estate to confront her when an urgent call from his parents summoned him home. Now, both families sat around the dining table, silently scrolling through the news on their phones, their expressions growing darker by the second. A notification pinged on Ethan's phone. He stared at the official notice of suspension from the hospital, his fingers tightening on his phone. At almost the exact same moment, Candy received her expulsion notice from the university. The parents finally put down their phones and prepared to discuss a strategy. "Mrs. Anderson forced a strained smile. Perhaps we should postpone the wedding for now. We can always arrange things after the baby is born." Candy's father slammed his hand on the table. "Bullshit. My daughter is already showing. You want to delay? They need to get married now." Mr. Anderson rubbed his temples. "The media is in a frenzy right now. If we hold a wedding, the online backlash will be even worse. Both of our families have reputations to maintain in the medical community. The bigger this scandal gets, the harder it will be to contain. Ethan is only suspended. His skills are undeniable. The hospital won't actually fire him. Once this blows over, he'll be reinstated. Candy's father roared back. My daughter was expelled. The entire internet is calling her a homewrecker. How is she supposed to clear her name if they don't get married? Mrs. Anderson muttered under her breath. Well, she is one. What did you just say? Candy's parents shot to their feet, and her mother grabbed a teacup from the table, as if it were a weapon. The two families were on the verge of coming to blows. Ethan slammed his fist on the table, roaring, "Everybody shut up!" The room fell instantly silent, everyone shocked by his sudden explosion. His voice was ice cold. First, I'm not marrying Candy. Second, after the baby is born, she is leaving the country to continue her studies. The air in the room seemed to solidify. The four parents just stared at each other, speechless. Candy's mother was the first to find her voice. Ethan, what is the meaning of this? What do you think our daughter is to you? Ethan closed his eyes, his voice resolute. Candy and I were always clear on this. The only person I have ever intended to marry is Sunny. That will never change. Candy kept her head down, fat tears rolling down her cheeks, but she didn't say a word. Mrs. Anderson was shaking with rage. After all this, you're still thinking about that little witch from the Miller family? None of this would have happened if it weren't for her. Mom! Ethan cut her off sharply. Sunny is my fiancée. Do not insult her like that. He rubbed his temples in frustration. I'm the one who messed up. She's just angry. I'll win her back. At his words, Candy could no longer contain herself and broke into loud sobs. Mr. Anderson slammed his teacup down. Angry? She has ruined both of our families. You've lost your job, and you're still defending her. Ethan shot to his feet, his eyes red. Dad, I don't care about any of that. But I can't lose Sunny. His voice broke, and he sank back onto the sofa, defeated. As everyone watched in stunned silence, the man who was always so calm and composed buried his face in his hands. His shoulders shook with quiet, suppressed sobs. His parents slumped onto the sofa, exchanging a look of weary resignation. Candy spoke through her sobs. Ethan, even if Sunny is married to someone else, you still don't want me? Ethan went rigid, whirling to face her with a venomous glare. Shut your mouth. If you hadn't secretly recorded that video and sent it to her, she never would have left me. I was drunk that night. I didn't mean any of it. He pointed a shaking finger at her. I must have been blind not to see what a manipulative, vicious person you are. Get out. Get out of my house right now. Candy stared at him, her eyes wide with shock as fresh tears streamed down her face. The man who had once been so gentle with her now looked like a monster. Ethan, you were never like this before. You're so annoying, he exploded, running a hand violently through his hair. You're 23 years old, and you do nothing but cry all day. Do you think you're toddler? He suddenly remembered that Sunny almost never cried in front of him. The one time she had in the kitchen, he had been annoyed then, too. But that annoyance was mixed with a sharp pang of regret for being the one who had made her cry. Candy suddenly clutched her stomach and shrieked. It hurts. Oh, baby, please don't scare Mommy. Here we go again, Ethan thought. He let out a cold sneer, covered his ears, and stood up. As everyone stared in disbelief, he turned and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. The only thing that mattered now was finding Sunny. Leo's schedule was planned down to the minute. The second we finished picking out rings, he whisked me off to a bridal boutique. I collapsed onto a velvet sofa and groaned. Leo, it's already dark. Can't we do this tomorrow? He undid the button on his suit jacket with one hand and raised an eyebrow. Nope. I don't want to give you a chance to change your mind. I gave him a weary smile. Do I really seem that flaky? We have a marriage license. Doesn't that give you any sense of security? He nodded gravely. No. I grabbed a throw pillow and tossed it at him. He caught it easily and used the motion to pull me to my feet. No escaping. Go try it on. When the sales associate slowly drew back the curtain to the dressing room, a sudden hush fell over the boutique. I stepped out in a vintage-style European gown and saw Leo standing frozen in place, his Adam's apple bobbing. He walked toward me, his voice thick with emotion, and gently pulled me into his arms. 2 years ago, I bought this dress at a Sotheby's auction, and all I could think about was how beautiful you would look in it. The sales associates were giggling behind their hands, and I quickly buried my blushing face in his chest. Just then, the glass door to the shop flew open. "Get your hands off her!" Ethan stormed in, his face contorted with rage, and reached for me. I recoiled from his touch in disgust. His hand fell on empty air, and a flash of pain crossed his face. "Sonny, this tantrum has gone on long enough. Leaking the video, blocking me, this fake marriage stunt. You've taken everything to the extreme, but I'm willing to forgive you." He pointed a shaking finger at Leo, his voice raw. "I defended you to everyone. I stood up to both our families and refused to marry Candy. And I find you here, trying on a wedding dress with him? Have you even once considered my feelings in all this?" I stared at him, my voice cold as ice. "Ethan, I'll say it one more time. I am not throwing a tantrum. Leo and I are legally married. We got our license on the day you were supposed to marry me. The second you walked out on me for Candy, we were finished." He shook his head, stumbling back a step. "Just because I left you for a few hours, you immediately went and married another man." I let out a sharp laugh. "You moved your pregnant mistress into our home and expected me to raise your child. Let me ask you this. If I came home pregnant with another man's baby and asked you to be its father, would you do it?" The color drained from his face. "Sonny, that's completely different. Don't twist my words. What happened with Candy was an accident, and the baby is innocent. No matter what, you're the one I love. For the sake of everything we've been through, can't you just compromise a little?" "I will not compromise 1 inch," I said, my voice firm. "You always said I had a princess attitude, didn't you? Well, here it is. Now, please leave and stay out of my life." My words seemed to wound him. He always hated it when I acted like a princess, and now I was owning it. Ethan's eyes suddenly turned red. Just as I turned to leave, he dropped to his knees and grabbed the hem of my dress. "Sonny, I was wrong. I swear I'll cut off all contact with Candy. I don't want the baby." He looked up at me, his voice desperate. "Divorce him. Divorce him right now, and we can go get our license." Immediately, I was so stunned by his shamelessness that I actually laughed. Leo, who had been standing silently behind me, had finally had enough. His face was dark as he gently guided me back toward the dressing room. "Stay in here," he said in a low voice. "Don't come out." I nodded obediently. Peeking through the crack in the curtain, I saw Leo loosening his tie and couldn't help but feel a little nervous for Ethan. Outside, I heard Leo's cold laugh. "Ethan, you really think I'm a pushover? You're telling my wife to divorce me, right in front of me." Ethan got to his feet, his face grim. "You just got lucky. You swooped in while Sonny was mad at me. What's there to be proud of?" Leo's voice was sharp as glass. 8 years. I waited for her for 8 years. Even if I was just picking up your scraps, I earned it. And you? Do you have any idea what she gave up for you? The fearless Sonny Miller, who used to take on the world, became someone who was afraid to breathe too loudly around your mother. She never lifted a finger at home, but she learned to cook hundreds of recipes for you. She even hand-washed your shirts. And how did you repay her? By bringing your mistress into her home and then throwing her out on the street. I sighed. I never realized how pathetic I must have looked to everyone else. Leo's voice grew louder with every word, and he took a deep breath to steady himself. "She gave you everything, and this is what she gets in return? She deserves so much better." Ethan was stunned. "She told you all that? She tells you her private business? Have you two been seeing each other behind my back this whole time?" "You're disgusting," Leo snarled, and grabbing a heavy glass ashtray from a nearby table, he threw it. Blood immediately started streaming down Ethan's forehead. His eyes narrowed, and he swung a punch at Leo. Seeing that a real fight was about to break out, I threw open the curtain and stepped between them. "Ethan," I said coldly, "leave now." He stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Sonny, you're protecting him?" Blood was still trickling from the gash on his forehead, mixing with the tears that now streamed down his face. His handsome features were swollen and twisted, and his white shirt was stained with blood and dust. He looked nothing like the polished gentleman I once knew. I frowned and looked away, unable to stand the sight of him. He managed a smile that was more painful than a grimace and stumbled toward the door. Just then, a pair of warm hands covered my eyes from behind, and Leo's low voice rumbled in my ear. "Wifey, don't look at him." I froze for a second, then sighed. This man, who was a titan in the business world, could also be so childishly possessive. It seemed I still had a long way to go in making him feel secure. The scandal surrounding Ethan and Candy continued to explode online, growing far beyond anything I could have imagined. As people dug deeper, more shocking details emerged. It turned out that Candy had drugged Ethan's drink that night. Ethan had been completely unaware, believing he had simply lost control after having too much to drink. Even more shocking, it came out that Candy had 8 different mentors, and Ethan was simply the wealthiest and most successful of the bunch. Unsure of who the real father was, she had simply chosen Ethan to be the fall guy. The Anderson family's century-long medical legacy was destroyed overnight, with online forums mockingly calling them the Cuckold Clan. Faced with the relentless, worldwide mockery, Ethan finally broke. He called me from a new number, but I hung up the second I heard his voice. A moment later, I received a text. "Sonny, I'm sorry. I won't bother you again." I deleted the message without a second thought, wanting nothing more to do with him. It was only later that I learned he had tried to kill himself that day with an overdose of sleeping pills. They saved him, but he was left with crippling anxiety and depression, so severe that at times he couldn't even manage basic daily tasks. Meanwhile, another of Candy's mentors, a high-powered finance executive, was fired from his job, blacklisted from the industry, and his wife left him. Consumed by hatred for Candy, he ambushed her with a knife during one of her prenatal checkups. By the time she was found, she was lying in a pool of her own blood. The baby didn't survive, and Candy herself lost the ability to ever have children. After reading the news report, I gave Leo, who was sipping his coffee, a meaningful look. "See that? That's what happens when you cheat." He sputtered, spraying coffee everywhere, and frantically wiped his mouth. "Don't you worry, wifey. I am 100% loyal,